Amazon deforestation down by a third in 2023, says Brazilian government. Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon fell by 33.6% in the first 6 months of President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's term compared with the same period in 2022, the government says. It suggests the rainforest shrank by 2,649 square kilometers this January to June, down from 3,988 square kilometers in those 6 months last year under President Bolsonaro. The released government satellite data has not been independently verified. Lula has pledged to end deforestation, or forest clearance, by 2030. But he faces a huge challenge to achieve this target, as the area of rainforest still reported to be lost under his rule is more than 3 times the size of New York City. The past few years have seen an alarming rise in deforestation. The Amazon rainforest is a crucial buffer in the global fight against climate change. Deforestation surges in 2022 despite pledges. Future of UK fossil fuels at stake in test case. UN to unmask fossil fuel lobbyists at climate talks. The new satellite data was presented by Brazil's National Institute of Space Research, INPE, on Thursday. We have reached a steady downward trend in deforestation of the Amazon, Environment Minister Marina Silva told reporters. INPE singled out June as the month that saw a record 41% drop in forest clearance compared with the same period last year. Lula, who took office in January, has vowed to reverse policies of his far-right predecessor Jair Bolsonaro, who promoted mining in indigenous lands in the Amazon. Earlier this year, Lula decreed 6 new indigenous reserves, banning mining and restricting commercial farming there. Indigenous leaders welcomed the move, but stressed that more areas needed protection. And while deforestation was reported to have fallen, fires were up in the statistics. In June alone, satellite monitoring detected 3,075 fires in the Amazon, the highest number since 2007. Many of the blazes, releasing vast amounts of carbon emissions, have been linked to the clearing of previously deforested areas. Lula, who previously served as Brazil's president in 2003 to 2010, has also been pushing for the world's richest nations to pay for various initiatives aimed at saving the rainforest. In April, research by Global Forest Watch Monitoring Network showed that an area of tropical forest the size of Switzerland was lost last year around the world as tree clearance surged. It said that some 11 football pitches of forest were lost every minute in 2022, with Brazil dominating the destruction. It suggested that a political pledge to end deforestation made by world leaders at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in 2021 was well off track. The Amazon is the largest rainforest in the world, and 60% of it is in Brazil. Due to the large number of trees growing there, it is often called the lungs of the planet on account of how the trees absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. OceanGate, owner of Titan submersible, suspends exploration. OceanGate, the owner of the Titan submersible that imploded last month, killing all 5 passengers on board, has fully suspended its activities. The company posted a one-line note on its website saying it had stopped all exploration and commercial operations. On its website, the company had also advertised tours of the Portuguese archipelago of Azores and the Bahamas. An investigation is ongoing into how the sub imploded during a dive to the Titanic wreck on the 18th of June. Led by the U.S. Coast Guard, authorities said the inquiry would aim to prevent similar accidents in future. Chief Investigator Captain Jason Neubauer said last month that the Coast Guard had convened its highest level of investigation, and that the probe would be run jointly with Canadian, UK and French authorities. The investigation would be able to recommend civil or criminal charges, Captain Neubauer said. On the 28th of June, the Coast Guard said debris and human remains from the Titan had been recovered and returned to land, concluding an early stage of the investigation. Authorities said the debris would be taken to a U.S. port for more analysis. Captain Neubauer said in a statement last week that there was still a substantial amount of work left for investigators. OceanGate's CEO Stockton Rush, 61, died on board the Titan alongside the 4 other passengers, British-Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, 48, and his son Suleiman, 19, British businessman Hamish Harding, 58, and Paul Henry Nargeolet, 77, a former French Navy diver. Rush earned a reputation as an ambitious explorer and a passionate leader, one who occasionally broke rules to pursue his dream of exploring the sea. He was on board the Titan for several successful dives, though he had reportedly ignored warnings over the safety of his sub. Netherlands to return treasures to Indonesia and Sri Lanka. The Netherlands is set to hand back hundreds of precious artifacts taken from Indonesia and Sri Lanka during its colonial period. Objects to be returned include a gem-encrusted bronze cannon and a looted cache of jewels from the Lombok treasure. A report had urged the government to return items if countries request them. The agreed restitution comes as the Netherlands increasingly confronts its colonial past. Other countries have also begun returning precious looted artifacts in recent years. Notable examples include British and German museums signing over some of the so-called Benin bronzes stolen from Nigeria during a large-scale 1897 British military expedition. This is the first time that we are returning objects that should never have been in the Netherlands, Culture Minister Gunay Uslu said. But we are not just returning objects. We are actually starting a period in which we are more intensively cooperating with Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Among the collections to be handed back to Indonesia is the so-called Lombok treasure, a trove of jewels, precious stones, gold and silver which was looted by the Dutch colonial army from a royal palace on Indonesia's Lombok Island in 1894. Sri Lanka will take back a lavishly decorated 18th-century bronze cannon, currently on display at Amsterdam's Rijksmuseum, thought to have been a gift from a Sri Lankan aristocrat to the King of Kandy in the 1740s. The cannon is believed to have fallen into Dutch hands in 1765, when Dutch troops attacked and conquered the Sri Lankan kingdom of Kandy. Culture Minister Uslu said the government was acting on recommendations laid out in a 2020 report by a Dutch committee investigating art taken during the colonial era. The committee urged the government to be willing to return unconditionally any cultural objects looted in former Dutch colonies if requested by the source country. The Netherlands must assume responsibility for its colonial past by making the recognition and redress of this injustice a key principle of the policy on colonial collections, the report said. The country has been wrestling with its legacy more openly in recent years. On Saturday, King Willem-Alexander formally apologized for the Netherlands' role in the slave trade, saying he felt personally and intensely affected